Effective communication in business is something that lots of people struggle with. And so what I want to outline is what I call the language ladder. And what we're going to walk through is language and the best way to communicate that is going to be most effective for sales, for communication with clients and maintaining better relationships, and of course, communication even within the office. And I think people recognize that email has become one of the preferences for people, but it is one of the least effective. And I want to walk through things that you should be doing that are going to move you closer to the money and closer to better relationships and most effective communication. The first one, and I think this doesn't come as a surprise to people, is the idea of face-to-face communication. It's the number one thing that I like to do. The reason for this is related to the amount of communication you get when you sit with somebody. You not only get 55% of communication, which comes from body language, but you also pick up on the 37% of communication, which comes from voice, tonality, volume. And then the last thing, 7%, is words. And all of that makes 100% communication. You're picking up on everything somebody is saying or not saying through the way they are speaking, what they're speaking, and what they're not saying, even in their hands or in their body. The next thing that's most effective is the telephone. The phone is something that has become a lost art. People, you say, give them a call, and people say, yes, I emailed them. But one of the great parts about the phone, and you know this if you've ever phoned somebody where they pick up and you can tell if they're sad, if they're happy, if they're smiling, and it's because you don't get the body language, but what you still get is the 7% of words and the 38% of voice. So you still get 45% of communication coming through over the telephone. Now the next piece, and this is where oftentimes people start to differ from my opinion, is that I say the next best thing is to be able to have voicemail. And I say voicemail because again I get 45% of communication. And again, oftentimes people here jump to something like email, and again, I'll continue to demonstrate why it becomes less and less effective. The fourth thing that I like to follow up with is, and I'll use the example of a letter. And the reason a letter tends to be really, really effective is because of the tactileness. Most people, as one of their modalities of communication, they're kinesthetic, which means that they communicate things and get a feel for things and gather information based on the way things are. If you ever flip through the mail and it's sort of bill, 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 and then you've got maybe an invitation to something, you know how exciting that is. And it's really no different when people get a letter. They rip open the envelope, they pull it out, they fold it, they feel it in their hands, and it has impact that way. An example is letters or even thank you cards or something you can physically mail out to people still has more emotional impact than email. The fifth thing I like to be able to move to is finally down to electronic communication. The reason for this and the reason it's so far down on the list is not for the efficiency, because it's more efficient than all of these things. But the reason, and everybody knows this, the reason they invented emoticons is because I never know what you really mean or how you're feeling or how you're saying it when you speak in terms of email. So I love email as a follow-up tool to any one of the other methodologies. But you have to keep in mind that email is really designed as a great tool as follow-up. Here's what we said, here's a summary of our meeting, here's the file you needed. But when you really want to get through to somebody, there's nothing more effective than skipping a 30-second email and maybe spending 5 minutes on a phone call or 15 minutes in a meeting. I guarantee by thinking, and if you think of the money as being at the top of this, that you will be closest to the money every time you're face-to-face with people, on the phone, or leaving voicemail messages. It's just a proven fact with successful salespeople that this is the way they work. They keep it personal, they make it relationship focused, and they make it about people, and they always have better results.